You ever watch your 7-year-old daughter get reported to the police for owning a dollhouse? Yeah, I didn't think that was a real thing either, until it happened to us one sunny Saturday up at our lake cabin in Cedar Hollow. We weren't doing anything crazy, just escaping the city for the weekend, trying to breathe a little deeper, let our kid run around, you know. My wife Sarah had packed sandwiches. I brought my laptop in case work tried to follow me, and Eva, our daughter, well, she brought her new obsession, a dollhouse she'd just gotten for her birthday. Painted bubblegum pink, shutters that actually opened, tiny little mail slot. This thing was her whole world that week. She placed it right near the edge of the path that led down to the lake, under this big oak tree where the light hits just right in the afternoon. And then, like some HOA themed jump scare, she appeared. Nancy Whitaker. I didn't know who she was at first, just this woman in her 60s, hair pulled so tight it looked like it hurt, wearing a cardigan and that look, you know, the look like she just tasted sour milk but is blaming you for it. She walked straight up to Eva, didn't even glance at me or Sarah, and said, "This structure is obstructing the community easement." Structure. She was talking about a 2-foot-tall dollhouse. At first, I thought it was some weird joke, like maybe she was trying to be funny in that dry HOA humor way, but then she pulled out her phone and said she was calling 911. Not exaggerating, not bluffing. She actually called the cops. Eva just froze. Looked up at me and said, "Did I do something wrong?" That cracked something inside me. Officer shows up about 15 minutes later. Poor guy looked exhausted before he even got out of his cruiser. He takes one look at the scene, a tiny pink dollhouse and a little girl holding a plastic dog, and just kind of rubs his eyes like he can't believe he's here. He turns to Nancy and says, "Ma'am, this is a toy." She didn't care. "It's still a violation of community codes," she said, lips pursed so tight I thought they might disappear. That's when I learned Nancy wasn't just any neighbor, she was the HOA president. And in her mind, that made her God. What followed was pure chaos. The next morning, we woke up to a citation envelope taped to our front door, 12 violations in under 24 hours. I'm talking nonsense like excessive laughter after quiet hours, non-compliant decorative structures, and vehicle parked at a non-HOA approved angle. Yeah, my car was crooked by like 10 degrees. Apparently that's a threat to community harmony. Then came the flyers. Printed out in bold type and slipped under every cabin door, new residents displaying disruptive behavior and disregard for Cedar Hollow standards. She made us sound like we were running an underground fight club instead of, raising a kid. It got worse. Someone, I'm not naming names, but it starts with Nancy, spread a rumor that I had a record. Dug up some completely resolved workplace complaint from years ago and spun it into this narrative that I was aggressive, possibly unstable, a threat to community safety. Sarah stopped going for walks alone. Eva wouldn't go near the playground. Our neighbors stopped waving. I almost gave up. We talked about selling the cabin and just leaving. But every time I saw Eva staring out the window, watching other kids play like she was contagious, I just couldn't. Then one night, and I remember this because it was the first time I slept less than 3 hours in weeks, I thought, why that spot? Why the path? So I started digging. Pulled up the original community plans from the county's website. Took a little walk, but there it was plain as day, that path. It wasn't Nancy's property. It was marked as shared access. All cabin owners had equal right to use it. And then I noticed something else. Nancy had been slowly expanding her property over the last decade, little by little. A bush planted here, a rock moved there, repainting survey lines. She was stealing public land inch by inch, and no one had caught her because no one questioned her. Because they were afraid of her. I started keeping receipts. Took photos, got copies of documents, even installed a small camera near the disputed path. Caught her on video telling her landscaper to cover up the stakes, no one checks anyway. So I printed everything. Made one clean folder, no drama, no conspiracy theories, just facts. Then I showed up at the next HOA meeting. Now, picture this. Nancy's up front with a PowerPoint, accusing us of everything short of arson. She's got graphs, color-coded printouts, a slideshow full of pictures of our cabin from every angle. I half expected her to have a laser pointer and a fog machine. And when she's done smug as ever, she says, "I rest my case." I stood up, held up my one envelope, and said, "Actually, I've got a case too." I passed out the copies. Showed the original map. The easement rights. Then I played the video, Nancy telling a worker to hide the property lines. Dead silence. Then someone, this sweet older woman named Diane, who's lived there since the 80s, stands up and says, "I remember those lines. They were always there. Until a few years ago I thought I was losing my memory." That cracked the room open. One by one, people started realizing Nancy had been claiming more and more of the community land for herself, hiding behind rules and intimidation. One guy realized she'd blocked off access to the kayak launch he hadn't used in years. Another woman found out the picnic tables she thought were hers had actually been relocated from public space. The board voted to suspend Nancy on the spot. City officials got involved. The boundaries were repainted, the fencing she installed was removed, and every bogus citation she'd sent us officially voided. But the best part? A few days later, Eva and I walked down to that same oak tree. Dollhouse in hand. We set it back up right where it had been. She added a new sign this time, "Peace Palace, all welcome." And just like that, laughter returned. Nancy. She's still there. But now she keeps her curtains closed and her opinions quieter. And that patch of grass she fought so hard to control. Now it's just grass. The dollhouse is still there too. It's faded now, some bleached and a little cracked, but it's a reminder that no matter how loud or powerful a bully seems, truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs someone willing to stand up. But here's the thing, what would you have done? Was I right to push back, or did I go too far? Should people like Nancy have power at all? Or are they just misunderstood? Let me know what side you're on, and if you've ever had a run-in with a neighbor who went way too far, drop it in the comments. Trust me, I won't call the cops on your story.